In the heart of Vermont, an idyllic suburban neighborhood where picket fences lined the streets and laughter echoed from well-kept yards, lived Sarah Collins. To the outside world, she was the epitome of the perfect wife and mother. Her radiant smile and warm demeanor made her a beloved figure at PTA meetings, where she was often seen organizing bake sales and school events. Neighbors admired her unwavering dedication to her family, especially her loving husband David and their two beautiful children. Sarah's life seemed like a page torn from a storybook, the kind of existence others envied. Yet, beneath this wholesome facade, a dark and twisted secret lurked. Sarah harbored a clandestine affair with her charismatic boss, Robert. However, this secret was a ticking time bomb, poised to explode and shatter the carefully constructed illusion of her perfect life. The tranquility of Vermont would soon be disrupted by a chain of events that no one could have foreseen. Sarah Collins appeared to have it all: a loving husband, David, two wonderful children, and a beautiful home in the tight-knit suburban neighborhood of Vermont. She was the kind of woman who seemed to effortlessly balance the demands of family life with her community commitments. At school events, Sarah was always at the forefront, organizing events and fundraisers, her enthusiasm infectious and her ability to bring people together admired by all. The PTA relied heavily on her leadership, and she was well liked by her peers for her kindness and generosity. David Collins, her husband, was a successful accountant known for his attention to detail and unwavering work ethic. His long hours at the office were a testament to his dedication to providing a comfortable life for his family. Despite his demanding job, David always made time for his family, prioritizing weekend barbecues, family game nights, and attending every one of his children's school events. To outsiders, the Collins family was the embodiment of suburban bliss. Yet his promotion 2 years ago had come with increased responsibilities, demanding even longer hours at the office. This new role, while financially beneficial for the family, also meant David's presence at home became a bit irregular. His once predictable routine was sometimes replaced by late nights at work and frequent business trips. The once vibrant energy in their relationship began to wane, and Sarah found herself longing for the attention that had become a rare commodity. Their two children, Emma and Jack, were bright and cheerful, thriving under the care of their devoted parents. Emma, 9 years old, the elder of the two, was an enthusiastic soccer player, while Jack, only 2 years younger, showed an early aptitude for science, often seen with his nose buried in a book about dinosaurs or conducting makeshift experiments in the backyard. Their laughter filled the Collins home, creating an atmosphere of love and happiness that seemed unbreakable. However, beneath this picture-perfect exterior lay a bitter and sad hidden reality that Sarah kept locked away, which was truly heartbreaking. For the past year, she had been entangled in a passionate affair with the head of the PTA, Robert Redford. Robert was everything David was not: spontaneous, adventurous, and thrillingly unpredictable. He showered Sarah with compliments and attention, making her feel desired in a way she hadn't felt in years. Their stolen moments were a secret escape from her everyday routine, a dangerous indulgence that filled the void she felt in her marriage. The emotional and physical intimacy that had once defined Sarah and David's relationship had gradually diminished. Sarah felt increasingly isolated, yearning for the closeness and affection that had once been a staple of their marriage. Sarah's attempts to rekindle their romance were met with wrong timings or brief, distracted attention, leaving her feeling more alone than ever despite the bustling life around her. Despite the overwhelming guilt that gnawed at her, Sarah couldn't bring herself to end the affair. Robert's allure was too powerful. Charismatic and charming, Robert's attentiveness made Sarah feel desired and valued in ways she hadn't experienced in years. His flirtations and gestures of affection provided a stark contrast to the distant and preoccupied demeanor of her husband. Their clandestine meetings, often in secret locations away from the prying eyes of their suburban world, where they spent hours in bed after expensive dates, became an intoxicating escape from Sarah's daily routine. Robert's dynamic personality and ability to make Sarah feel like the center of his universe made the affair feel like a thrilling, albeit dangerous indulgence. Each encounter only heightened her internal conflict. The strain of living a double life became a heavy burden, as Sarah dreaded the inevitable day when her secret would unravel. But for a while, it seemed like Sarah had managed to find a fragile balance between her double life and the facade of suburban perfection. But as the months passed, subtle changes began to surface, casting shadows over her once seemingly perfect life. Enter Emily William. Emily William had always been part of the Vermont PTA, a familiar face at school events and community gatherings. To the outside world, she appeared to blend in seamlessly with the other mothers. However, behind closed doors, her life was far from ideal. Her husband was notorious for his numerous affairs, leaving Emily feeling isolated and humiliated. Her 3 sons, instead of being the picture of charming suburban youth, were known for their unruly behavior, adding to her frustrations. Emily found little comfort in her chaotic home life and turned to alcohol as a way to escape her unfulfilled existence. Amidst her own discontent, Emily had always harbored a secret jealousy towards Sarah Collins. Sarah seemed to have everything Emily lacked: beauty, a loving husband, well-behaved children, and a charmed life that was envied by many. The final straw came when Emily noticed the extra attention Sarah was receiving from Robert, who was both wealthy and influential. Emily's resentment boiled over as she perceived this attention as another example of Sarah's effortless charm and success, a stark contrast to Emily's own troubled reality. One seemingly ordinary but fateful day of January 2018, Sarah went to use the restroom, leaving her laptop open during one of the meetings regarding the International Women's Day Charity Gala, where Emily stumbled upon the deleted emails between Sarah and Robert. The deleted emails were filled with scandalous details and intimate exchanges that would spell disaster for Sarah if they were made public. In one email, Robert had written to Sarah, "I can't stop thinking about last night. The way you looked at me after I kissed you. It was like nothing else. I want you to know how much I appreciate these moments we share." In another email, Robert had hinted at their future plans. "We need to find a way to keep this going. I've arranged a weekend getaway for us when Robert is in New York. I want to be with you, away from all this. It's getting harder to keep up appearances." Emily's discovery didn't stop there. She found messages where Sarah had confessed her frustrations about her marriage. "David is so distant. Ever since his promotion, he's been too busy for me. I feel like a ghost in my own home. I need this, Robert. I need you." The emails revealed more than just a secret affair. They showcased Sarah's vulnerabilities and her dissatisfaction with her life. The intimate details and private confessions would be enough to not only destroy her marriage but also her standing in the community. It was a discovery that fueled Emily's bitterness and provided an opportunity to seize some control over the jealousy that had festered within her. With a sly grin, she decided to exploit Sarah's secret for her own gain. After Sarah came back and pulled back her chair to sit on it, "Looks like you've been having quite the adventure," Emily taunted when she confronted Sarah, her voice dripping with malice. Then, going straight to point, keeping it direct, she said, "I know all about your affair with Robert. If you don't want this going public, you'll need to pay me." Sarah, shocked, humiliated, and embarrassed, replied with nothing but, "Okay," then left without saying a word. At first, Sarah managed to keep Emily at bay with small payments, desperately hoping that a few quick fixes would buy her enough time for the situation to resolve itself. But Emily's demands soon grew insatiable. The initial payments, which had seemed manageable, now appeared to be merely a down payment on a much larger and more dangerous game. Emily began asking for larger sums, her threats growing bolder with each passing day. "You know the drill, Sarah," Emily said, her tone growing colder. "More money, or this affair becomes public knowledge. I'm sure your husband and everyone else would be very interested in this little secret." The stress of the escalating blackmail took a toll on Sarah. She was haunted by the constant fear of exposure, her mind racing with each demand from Emily. David, ever observant despite his busy schedule, began to notice the subtle signs of distress in Sarah. "Why is money disappearing from our accounts?" David asked one evening, his voice tinged with concern. You've been acting so distant lately. Is something going on? Sarah's heart pounded as she tried to deflect his probing questions. I've just been handling some unexpected expenses, she lied, her voice strained. You know how things come up. David wasn't convinced. His suspicions deepened as Sarah's behavior grew increasingly erratic. The situation deteriorated further as Sarah found herself trapped between the demands of Emily and her deteriorating relationship with David. What had started as a seemingly harmless affair had morphed into a dangerous obsession, with Emily using Sarah's vulnerabilities as leverage for her own gain. The once thrilling secret that Sarah had indulged in was now a source of relentless torment, pushing her toward a breaking point she wasn't prepared for. As weeks turned into months, Emily's demands escalated beyond Sarah's worst fears. One crisp autumn afternoon, Sarah was caught off guard when Emily arrived at her doorstep. David was home, taking a rare day off to spend time with the family. The timing was impeccable for Emily, who relished the opportunity to add a layer of danger to her manipulation. Sarah's heart raced as she opened the door, struggling to mask her panic. "Hi, Sarah," Emily greeted with an unsettling cheerfulness. "I'm here to discuss the upcoming gala. I thought it might be helpful to go over some final details in person." David looked up from his magazine, his expression curious but nonchalant. "Oh, hey, Emily. I didn't realize you were coming by today." Sarah forced a smile, her mind racing for a plausible excuse. "Emily's just here for some last-minute gala planning," she said, trying to sound casual. "We need to finalize some details for the event." Emily, ever the actress, played along with ease. "Yes, indeed. I thought it would be better to discuss this in person rather than over the phone. The gala is such an important event after all." David nodded, seemingly satisfied with the explanation, but Sarah could see the hint of suspicion in his eyes. The encounter left Sarah shaken, her nerves on edge as she watched Emily leave with a parting smirk. Emily's visits became more frequent, each one more random than the last. She would appear at Sarah's door at odd hours, always with a new excuse: a sponsor for the gala needing to discuss financial arrangements, a last-minute change in plans that required Sarah's immediate attention. Each interaction was designed to maximize Sarah's stress, and David grew increasingly wary. The facade of normalcy was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. As Emily's demands grew more audacious, Sarah found herself cornered. Emily's threats became more explicit, her tone more menacing. "If you don't come up with the money I'm asking for, I'll make sure everyone knows about your little affair," Emily warned during one of her visits. "It's only a matter of time before this all comes crashing down." The pressure was unbearable. Sarah, exhausted and desperate, knew she had to act quickly. She couldn't keep up the charade of excuses forever. Driven to her breaking point, Sarah decided she needed to confront Emily directly. The stakes were higher than ever, and Sarah's fear of losing everything drove her to take drastic measures. On March 2nd, the rain poured heavily as Sarah drove to the secluded trail on Vermont cliffs, a place known where she often came to hike. The trail, ironically named Silent Cliffs, was the perfect spot for a secret meeting, away from prying eyes and nosy neighbors. The rain created a thick mist, shrouding the area in a ghostly haze, while Sarah waited anxiously at the meeting point. Emily arrived and the rain intensified, adding to the tension as Emily approached. "You wanted to meet here?" Emily asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "Yes," Sarah replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the tremor of fear that ran through her. "I need this to end. I can't keep doing this. I'll give you the money, but this has to stop. I don't care anymore because I have decided to tell David myself." Emily responded, "The money you've given me so far isn't enough. I need more. Much more. And if you don't come up with it, everyone will know about your affair, let alone David. Do you really think you can get away from this?" Sarah's desperation mounted. She took a step closer to Emily, her voice rising with urgency. "You're pushing me to the edge. Just stop this. I'm begging you." The argument grew more heated, their voices rising above the sound of the rain. In the chaos of their heated exchange, Emily moved dangerously close to the edge of the trail. Sarah, driven to the brink of her endurance, felt a surge of frustration and fear. Her hands shook as she tried to reason with Emily, but the confrontation was rapidly spiraling out of control. In a moment of reckless desperation, Sarah reached out, grabbing Emily's arm to steady her. Emily, caught off guard, stumbled backward. The slippery ground and the relentless rain made it difficult for either of them to maintain their footing. Sarah's frantic grasp turned into a shove as she tried to forcefully end the argument. The shove, however, had devastating consequences. Emily's footing gave way, and she was propelled towards the edge of the trail. Her eyes widened in shock as she teetered on the brink. The combination of the wet, treacherous terrain and the force of Sarah's shove caused Emily to lose her balance. With a cry of surprise, Emily slipped and tumbled over the edge, disappearing into the darkness below. Sarah stood frozen, her heart racing as the realization of what had just happened hit her with brutal clarity. She peered over the edge, but the only thing the thick fog in the distance made visible to see was the deep red blood on the smaller rocks below. The sound of the rain masked any cries for help, and Sarah was left in a horrifying silence. A wave of horror and guilt crashed over her. She knew she had to act quickly to cover up the accident. Her mind raced as she tried to compose herself, knowing that every second counted. She left the scene, her steps unsteady and her thoughts chaotic. The cold rain felt like a physical weight on her shoulders, mirroring the crushing guilt she felt. Returning home, Sarah was a bundle of nerves. She was consumed by fear of what she had done and the implications for her life and family. The weight of the accident hung over her, and she desperately sought to protect her secret, knowing that any slip could lead to catastrophic consequences. Back at home, Sarah struggled to maintain a sense of normalcy. She went through the motions of daily life, but the weight of her secret gnawed at her constantly. David, now more suspicious than ever, began to piece together the clues. He noticed the strained look in Sarah's eyes, her frequent absences, and her agitation whenever the phone rang. One day he stumbled upon Sarah's emails and discovered the affair, realizing the depth of her deception. David confronted Sarah one evening after putting the children to bed. The air was thick with tension as he laid the emails in front of her. "What is this, Sarah? How could you?" he demanded, his voice a mix of anger and disbelief. Sarah's defenses crumbled and tears streamed down her face. She confessed everything: the affair, the blackmail, and the accidental killing of Emily. David was devastated and horrified, unable to comprehend how the woman he loved and trusted could be involved in such a sordid affair. His world turned upside down, and he struggled to process the betrayal and the gravity of the situation. The psychological and emotional toll on the Collins family was immense. Sarah lived in a constant state of fear, panic, and nervousness, terrified that the police would eventually discover her involvement in Emily's death and that she would go to jail. Her anxiety manifested in sleepless nights, constant paranoia, and a growing sense of hopelessness. Emily's body was discovered a few days later by a hiker. The rain had washed away much of the evidence, and the secluded nature of the trail meant there were no witnesses. The police launched an investigation, and Sarah, who had been the last person seen with Emily, came under suspicion. She was called in for questioning, and while she tried to maintain her composure, the pressure was overwhelming. As word spread about Emily's death, rumors began to circulate in the tight-knit community of Maplewood. People whispered about Sarah's frequent visits to the cliffs and her connection to Emily. Though no one directly accused her of foul play, the community's attitude towards her shifted. Friends became distant, and the warm welcome she once received turned cold. The once admired Sarah Collins became a subject of gossip and speculation. David, unable to reconcile his feelings of betrayal and anger, grew increasingly unhappy. He resented Sarah but stayed in the marriage for the sake of their children. The once happy home became a place of tension and unease. David's withdrawal and the strain on their relationship were palpable, and rumors of their impending divorce began to spread. Sarah's mental state deteriorated rapidly. She became extremely suicidal, often writing heartfelt suicide notes that she later discarded in the trash. The guilt and fear were unbearable. Richard was also profoundly affected. His connection to the scandal threatened his professional reputation. The stress and guilt over his role in Sarah's downfall weighed heavily on him. He became withdrawn and paranoid, fearing that his part in the affair might eventually come to light and ruin his life. Despite her extreme distress, Sarah never followed through with her suicidal thoughts, clinging to the hope of being there for her children. However, her mental state left her a shell of the person she once was. Neighbors whispered about an affair between Richard and Sarah, and these whispers quickly reached the ears of the police. Initially dismissed as mere gossip, the persistent nature of these rumors forced the investigators to take a closer look. The picture painted by these allegations was a troubling one. If Richard and Sarah were indeed involved in an illicit affair, it cast a shadow of suspicion over Sarah. Moreover, with David's alleged desire for a divorce, the motive for such a heinous act began to crystallize in the minds of the investigators. A perfect storm of jealousy, betrayal, and the prospect of losing everything seemed to provide a strong motive for Sarah to commit the crime. As the investigation continued, Sarah found herself under intense scrutiny. Her alibis were dissected, her every move was monitored, and every aspect of her relationship with David and Richard was examined. Despite the mounting pressure, Sarah maintained her innocence. Yet, the cloud of suspicion loomed large, and the case remained open. The investigators delved deeper into the couple's history, uncovering more layers of complexity and deceit. The once clear-cut lines between victim and perpetrator blurred, leaving everyone involved grappling with uncertainty. But truth always has a way of coming out. After 3 years, on November 13, 2021, the investigation took a drastic turn. The police visited Emily's house again, and during their conversation, her oldest son revealed something he had never mentioned before. He spoke about how his mother always seemed very mad on the phone when talking to Sarah, and the conversations were always about money. This new information prompted the investigators to dig deeper into Emily's financial records. They discovered a series of transactions that Emily had kept hidden, payments made by Sarah to Emily. It became clear that Emily had been blackmailing Sarah, a revelation that significantly altered the course of the investigation. Blackmail, especially to such an extent, was a serious crime. With this new evidence, the police were able to piece together a more coherent story. The financial transactions and the motive they suggested were enough to take Sarah into custody. The perfect image of the Collins family shattered as Sarah was arrested, casting a long shadow over their once pristine reputation. The case against Sarah grew stronger as more evidence came to light. Yet, despite the mounting proof, Sarah continued to proclaim her innocence, asserting that she was being framed. The legal battle that ensued was fierce and complex, with both sides presenting compelling arguments. Sarah's trial is still ongoing, with the public eagerly awaiting the final verdict. The story of David, Sarah, and Richard serves as a stark reminder of the hidden complexities within seemingly perfect lives and the unsettling reality that justice is not always swift or certain. As the courtroom drama unfolds, one question remains: will Sarah be found guilty, or will the shadows of suspicion continue to obscure the reality of what happened that fateful day? Only time will tell, as the search for justice goes on. Want to see more videos like this? Then click on the video you are seeing on your screen now.